the natural grid. Don't try and Google this because they'll stick you onto the national grid. But Chris Cook and Marcus Saul are talking to us about the natural grid. Looking forward to your presentation, guys.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Excellent. You've only got me, I'm afraid, thanks to glitches with Google Drive. So it's just Chris Cook. The presentation, well, first of all, about me. I am a Senior Research Fellow at University College London at the Institute for Strategy, Resilience and Security. That's a mouthful. Also a director of the Nordic Enterprise Trust, which is a social enterprise. And Marcus and I have just set up a little joint venture, Island Power LLP. And the aim of Island Power LLP is to develop the natural grid. So by way of background, there was a fantastic project, an engineer called Robert Pownall in 1945 came up with the concept of he called it the Grand Contour Canal, and he designed a route along the 100-meter contour level, and you'll see from the slide that it wound its way from Newcastle all the way down to various points, and it also connected with, the idea was to have boat lifts down to the rivers with which it intersected. Brilliant idea, because at the end of the day, it's the cheapest way, most energy efficient way of transporting goods. But it didn't come to anything. The war ended and there wasn't the resource to deal with it. But that was, if you like, the gem of the idea. Now, in 2011, we had the first climate emergency, first of many possibly. There was a really bad drought, you may remember. And one of the responses to this was David Waite, colleague of mine. We've worked together for a long, long time. He's an engineer by profession, and he came up with the idea of a north-south canal to take water from the redundant Kielder Reservoir, some of you may know, way up there in the north, and to take it pretty effectively over a declining gradient all the way down to the southeast where the water was needed. And there were lots of ideas about, also being an engineer, he included other ideas such as carrying data and carrying power along the route. Really interesting idea. Quite a bit of money was spent in preparing detailed plans. Ministers were really interested, but unfortunately, the Treasury, it was Mr. Osborne at the time of Northern Powerhouse fame, they couldn't afford this. So it didn't go ahead. Damn good idea it was. Now, since then, the world has moved on, the climate emergency has moved on. Now we haven't had a drought since then, although it's only a matter of time, I think, until we do. It's a really major resilience issue. But what we have had is frequent flash floods. Here's just some images of flash floods. So flood relief would be a very interesting aspect to whatever project we come up with. And the question, and this I think is what I have been able to work on resolving, is how we can actually fund the project. What George Osborne could not do, we can. And here's an example of how it was done in the US. The intercontinental railroads were funded simply by allocating land. The federal government allocated land to the railroads. And the value of the uplift of the land from the developments and the towns that grew up along the route actually more than paid for the cost of the railroad construction. Similar thing was done with the Metropolitan line in London, Metro land. It's called land value capture for infrastructure financing. Now, that is the idea here, that here's an image. It's just a route. It's not the route. It's just an image of a route for we're calling it a linear reservoir, because that actually is what a contour canal is. It's at the same level all the way along the route.
Chris, Chris, we can't see your slide. I wonder if you could just share your screen, please.
Sorry,
Are you sharing your screen, Chris?
Not sharing the slides. Oh my goodness. Okay. 1 second. This is so annoying. Sorry, I need to get on the big screen. Okay. Are you getting the slides now? You will in a minute. Acceleration. Okay, so can you see it now?
We can't. Can you tell us what's on your screen?
It's a slide. It's a PowerPoint presentation. Should be. It's on my screen. Should be coming through.
You should be able to share screen.
I just did. I thought I did.
No one else can see it. Is that right? How about you? If you can't share it, I mean, it was going brilliantly.
Yeah.
Anyway,
just crack on, Chris, because the clock's ticking, I'm afraid.
Well, okay. You'll have to bear with me then. This is so effing annoying. Okay, so the next image, which you can't see, is an image of a route of a canal, and on either side of the canal is a zone. I call it an eco zone. And the idea is that nobody wants to live next door to runway 3. Nobody wants to live next door to the M99. And nobody wants to live next door to HS2. But people are extremely interested in living next door to water. Okay, so we can create an eco zone on either side of the natural grid route, which will actually be the land value uplift will actually help us to fund it. Now, the next few slides are all about imagining how this might look, which is such a pain you can't see. So the idea is to create a linear reservoir, but not just a reservoir. Imagine the Norfolk Broads. Imagine the opening out into lakes, potentially where the rivers intersect. This is where the expression natural grid comes from. The natural grid
Hi, Chris. Hi, Chris. We're very sorry to interrupt. We can now see your slides.
Okay.
So which slide are you at? I'll get onto it.
Okay.
Is it number 12? This one?
Let me just open up. Right. Okay. Yeah. Could you just go back? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, linear reservoir. Okay. You'll just have to flick through. So we're talking about a linear reservoir essentially. And along the route, for instance, we can put electricity cables, for instance. The idea is that we can put electricity communications cables. We can put low voltage cables. The idea is that we can create a, if you like, parallel infrastructure, which enables us to reach into a rejuvenated rural landscape. Now, please continue. Next one. One of the functions will be, well, keep going, past beauty and well-being. Okay.
I'll give you a few more seconds, Chris, but you are over time.
I'm sorry. I mean, because I'm over 7 minutes already.
Is it this one, Chris? Is it this?
Right. The idea is that the certain principles will apply within the eco zones. Okay, 3 principles. One is that the environmental principle, which is to least carbon fuel cost, least resource cost. Okay. The second one is to maximize well-being, if you like, the social. And the third one is affordability and access. Could you move on? This image is an image of the natural grid as applied in Denmark. On the left, Denmark 1990. On the right, Denmark 24 years later. You'll see it went from centralized power generation, okay, the big red dots, to measles breaking out. And they did that by applying what I call least resource cost policies. That is a principle of energy development, okay? And if you go on from there, just flick through the slides, you can see some of the things we'll be saying.
Brilliant. We can share these slides, Chris. This is great. Now we've got them, we'll be able to share them with everybody, and we're going to have to move on to the next one. So thank you so much for sharing your ideas and sharing that. Really look forward to learning a little bit more about that.
Sorry about